Hello, hello. Check, check, mic. Check, check. Check, check, mic. No one can hear me, can you? Ah! So many issues today. Dang. Let me see something. You can hear me? Can anyone hear me right now? Well, let me know. Sorry, we are having all kinds of technical issues today. All kinds. All right. Everyone can hear me? All right, sweet. I'm glad you can hear me. On my end, usually the volume bar, there's no volume bar showing that I'm recording right now. So I'm just glad that you can hear me. Thank you so much, everyone. Sorry about the last stream. I don't know what happened. I clicked go live and it just spun endlessly. It wouldn't let the stream start. So I don't know what happened there, what was going on, but it's so good to see everyone. Hello, hello. I'm so happy to be back and welcome to another episode of the live chat. That is right. We do this once a week, sometimes twice a week if it's crazy busy, but it's so good to be back. One of my favorite things to do. So thanks for jumping in, everyone. Anyone that's new here that has never been part of the live chat, the way this works, you drop those comments, you drop those questions to the side about the gaming industry or really whatever you want to talk about. Obviously, primarily about video games, but we can talk about, whatever you want, really. Drop those comments, drop those questions to the side, and I get to as many as I possibly can. We break down all of the biggest gaming news. So thanks for jumping in, everyone. There's a couple things we can talk about. A whole bunch of Xbox news just started dropping today. We know that now that Xcloud is going to be coming as part of Game Pass Ultimate for free. That's a very big move by Microsoft as things start to kind of heat up in the streaming business. So we have that we can talk about, that we can break down. Xbox has now we already knew this before, but Phil Spencer has expanded on and said that cross-gen is a strategy for Microsoft moving forward for the next, several years, that they are sticking with this, supporting Xbox One for a pretty long period of time. So what does that mean? Is it a good move? Is it a bad move? We can break down and talk about that. Ghost of Tsushima is about to launch. It's getting rave reviews over in Japan, also very solid reviews in the West as well. So we can talk about launch sales expectations with that. And of course, Paper Mario, the Origami King is right around the corner as well. So we can talk about that a whole bunch, right? We've got a whole bunch, as always, with the gaming industry to talk about. So make sure you start dropping those questions and comments on the side so we can break it all down. I've got a whole bunch already dropping. One more quick thing off the top. One more very, very quick thing. I want to give a shout out to the mod of this channel, the amazing, as always, Split End 89. Y'all know him. Y'all love him. Split End does an amazing job on this channel. Split End actually did a Ghost of Tsushima preview for GameStop. So if you visit Split End's Twitter, Split End's got a link on there. It's a very cool video, really cool. It's got like a bunch of production values, looks really nice. Give Split End 89 some support. Go over to his Twitter and make sure you click that video. It's really well done. I'm impressed. Split End is very comfortable in front of the camera. So yeah, make sure you give Split End that support. Thanks, everyone. Let's dive in and let's get rocking on those questions. Dave G with the first one right off of the bat. Do you think Ghost is going to beat The Last of Us 2? And is Paper Mario Origami King going to be a better seller than Paper Mario Thousand Year Door? Two great questions right off the top from Dave. Okay. I have a couple thoughts. So the Ghost worldwide, like on a global scale, I don't think it's going to beat The Last of Us. The Last of Us Part 2 did some pretty absurd, insane numbers, right? 4 million sell through in only 3 days. That's pretty stunning, right? That's not shipped. Shipped is going to be much higher than 4 million. The 4 million is how much it sold through in 3 days. I think that's just too steep, of a job for Ghost, especially being a new IP. But Dave, I think there definitely are markets that Ghost could be bigger in. The one I really have my eye on is Japan. I'm sure as many have seen, Famitsu gave Ghost of Tsushima a perfect score. Now, granted, it's Famitsu. As we all know, their reviews are a little suspect. They kind of play into hype and things like this. They're not exactly considered, let's say, the most unbiased source of reviews, but it is still pretty rare that Famitsu gives a perfect score to a Western developed game. I don't remember exactly how many it's been, but it's rare, right? There's not very many games from the West that Famitsu gives that perfect score to. It's usually Japan. So I'm very curious, Dave, how Ghost is going to perform in Japan. I think there's a very real chance it could outperform The Last of Us Part 2 there. So I think there's markets that it could beat The Last of Us in, but globally, I just think that's a bit too steep, especially with The Last of Us being, a sequel to such a beloved game. But keep an eye on Japan. I think Japan's going to be very, very interesting to watch. In regards to Paper Mario, the Origami King, yes, I do think it's going to beat Thousand Year Door. I think it's probably going to be the best-selling Paper Mario game ever, at least at launch. Switch has done, as we all know, right? Anyone that follows me or follows Nintendo news, we all know how actually insane that the Switch is at pushing first-party software, right? It just sets records left and right for franchises all over the place. You name it, and Switch has just about set a record. I think Paper Mario is going to follow in those footsteps. And part of that, I think, is going to be the fact that Switch has had a fairly light release schedule this year, right? We're already in July, so we're already a big chunk of the way. Okay, never mind. Sorry, I got an update. I got an update notification. I was making sure I didn't go offline. But yeah, Switch has been somewhat light this year. We had Animal Crossing, which was just utterly gigantic back in March, and then we had Xenoblade, which did well, but it wasn't like this gigantic seller. I think that it's wide open for Paper Mario to do well. I think people that have Switches are kind of thirsty for some new games. And also, as we've seen in recent months, Switch has been selling like insane, right? So there's tons of new owners that have just gotten Switches in the past couple months that are probably excited to get some new games as well. So I'm expecting good things for Paper Mario. Silence PP7. Oh, we have a super chat. Let me hit this super chat in silence. I will come right back to your question. Oh, we have two. Split End 89 giving a super chat. Thank you, Split End. And saying all that matters is I can see that scrumptious face. Thank you, Split End. Thank you. I'll tell you what, I'm actually melting right now. I'm so hot. I worked out outside right before I started the stream. And let me tell you, where I live right now, it is hot outside. So I am feeling the heat. But thank you, Split End. And then we have another one here from Ryan Byerly. I tend to really enjoy the third-person games that PlayStation has been pumping out. Do you think Xbox will start to create games similar to these? What are you looking forward to hearing from Xbox next week? Thank you so much for the super chat, Ryan. I do think that third-person story type game is an area that really Xbox hasn't quite delivered on recently, right? A lot of people, we can see this clearly through sales, that there are a lot of people that really like these narrative, linear, story-based games, right? If you look at Sony, they have really dominated that particular genre, really even over other publishers, right? Even other publishers like EA and Activision can't really compete with Sony in that particular genre, right? You look at The Last of Us Part 2, you look at God of War, you look at Spider-Man, which is open world, but it is like kind of like a linear story. It's very story based, right? It's an open world game, but very heavily story focused. You look at this whole generation, and Sony has really delivered on those third person story heavy games. I do think that is an area that Xbox hasn't quite delivered on, right? You look at their games, and their games have been very multiplayer focused. You have first person like Halo, or you have racing games like Forza, but you haven't seen a ton of that particular one. So Ryan, I do think you will see some of those, but I noticed a very interesting quote from Phil Spencer somewhat recently. I apologize, I can't remember exactly where this interview was, But he basically stated that he doesn't want to necessarily go after their first party making games just because the competition makes that kind of game. He wants to focus on what Microsoft is good at, right? What makes them a little unique and different from other first parties. And what that said to me is that, at least Phil Spencer doesn't think, hey, we have to specifically make these third-person story games just because they're successful for Sony. He wants to make sure that they're doing things that work for Xbox and what they're good at. So I do think, Ryan, you will see some of that from Microsoft. I think probably the Initiative is probably going to be your strongest chance at getting a game like that. But I do think that Microsoft is still going to focus on things that they excel at, multiplayer. That's one area that Sony is significantly behind Microsoft in, right? Sony, you can praise their first party just across the board. They've done amazing this gen. But if you look at multiplayer specifically, they're way not really competitive in that space. There's not very many. Uncharted 4 had a good multiplayer. A lot of people definitely enjoyed that. But if you look at a lot of their games, God of War, no multiplayer, Horizon, no multiplayer, Ghost of Tsushima, no multiplayer, a lot of their games, right? Some people don't care about that because they love single player. But what I mean is Microsoft is way ahead of Sony when it comes to online and multiplayer. So I think you'll see some, Ryan, but I don't think that they think they have to go fully that direction. And then we have another super chat here from Killian. Hey, thank you so much, Killian. Hey, Benji, hope you're keeping safe. I am. I'm doing well. So hyped for the live chat. It's one of my highlights of the week. Killian, it is one of my highlights as well. I literally love doing this. I know I say it every chat. Maybe it comes across as cliche or pandering, but I don't mean it that way. I really do love this. We have an amazingly positive group here. I see repeat faces here all of the time. They're one of my favorite things that I do. It makes my week every week when we do this. So thank you. All right. Silence PP7. Could Watchdogs Legion be a 15 million seller? Watchdogs 2 was on Ubisoft's list of 10 plus million and recently free on PC. So does any of that factor into Watchdogs Legion? Great question, Silence PP7. Great question. 15 million is pretty tough. That is pretty tough, especially when you look at the window that Watchdogs Legion is going to be launching in. It's going to be launching before some of these big games, right? It's before Halo Infinite. It's before Cyberpunk 2077. It's before Assassin's Creed Valhalla. So it does have that bonus that it's coming out in October. So it has a little bit of a gap, before it hits those next-gen games. But it is right in that mix of just, heavy hitters all over the place. So Silence PP7, I think 15 million is a challenge, but not impossible. I think if it's good, though, that 10 million is reasonable because people love open world games. Ubisoft has so many successful open world games, and it is cross-gen, right? We know it's being enhanced for next-gen consoles. So there are people that are going to be playing it on next-gen, not just current gen. So Silence PP7, I'd say 10 million's not an impossible prediction for Watchdogs Legion, but 15 million might be a challenge just because it's coming out right before so many mega hitters. Elias Stapleton. I remember you said in the last live chat that The Last of Us 2 is difficult to win Game of the Year because how divisive it is, but for fans is divisive, but media not. It's a great point. Many tens. And media are judges in the Game Awards. Thoughts? Yeah, Elias. I definitely think there is still a very strong chance that it can win Game of the Year, especially because, as you said, so many media are hugely positive on the game. I personally loved it. It's my favorite game of 2020 so far. But what I will say, Elias, is as time goes past, if a couple other really big games really deliver this year, let's say Cyberpunk 2077, for example, or something along those lines, something that is universally kind of loved. I know the media really like The Last of Us, but I mean, you see swells, right? You see swells for really like those Game of the Year games, right? When you look at God of War, for example, the media were all obsessed with it, and also fans were obsessed with it. It had this huge swell of support. You see that a lot for those games that get Game of the Year. The Last of Us, while media do really, really like it, and a lot of people like it too, I think there's a danger in saying it's divisive and thinking that, oh, no one likes this game. You know, you see some of the hate online around it and you think maybe that's how everyone feels. Clearly, there's millions and millions of people that enjoyed it as well. But I would say, Elias, it could. But if a game like Cyberpunk nails reviews and fans get a huge swelling of support behind it, you know, another game could sneak in there and take that Game of the Year from it. Killian, hey Benji, what was the most shocking emotional scene you've experienced in a game? Mine is that scene in The Last of Us 2. Really enjoy your content and hoping you're doing okay. Ooh, Killian, this is a tough one and a good question. I'm an emotional guy, believe it or not. Like, it's not super hard to make me cry at a game or a movie. It's really not. There's a lot. I can tell you that The Last of Us Part 2 had a couple tearjerker scenes for me. I won't go into super spoiler territory here, but there was definitely a couple in The Last of Us Part 2 that got me pretty good. BioShock Infinite, the ending of BioShock Infinite got me pretty good. I felt pretty emotional during that one. I know BioShock Infinite's a game that people have somewhat divisive thoughts on as well, but the whole last section ending of BioShock Infinite hit me in the feels pretty strong. Trying to think of a couple more off the top of my head. You know, those are some that stand out. Yeah, it's a tough one. You know, I'd have to sit there and really think about it, but that's a couple off the top of my head. The Last of Us Part 2 definitely had some, and the ending of BioShock Infinite back in the day. And I'll tell you what, the first game I can remember really hitting me in the feels was Final Fantasy X, the ending of Final Fantasy X. This is a really old game, so I'm going to drop a tiny spoiler for you. If you haven't beaten Final Fantasy X, close your ears for just a second. I'll give you the thumbs up if you don't, you know, whenever I'm done with it. But the first game I remember, I was pretty young when I played that game. Very, very ending. It hit me in the feels. I was I was a kid then. And when Titus gives Jekt, you know, he's coming to give Jekt and they do like the high five. It hit me. I got pretty emotional during that scene. So there's a few for you off the top of my head. And spoilers are over. All right. Crackstar. Ooh, fun one. Hi, Benji. What are your thoughts on the sales potential of Crash 4? What do you think of the metrics so far? And will the higher MSRP significantly affect sales? Crackstar, I think that Crash 4 is going to light up the charts, do very, very, very strong, very, very, very well. You know, we saw Crash Team Racing do excellent, and that was a spinoff. We saw the Crash Insane trilogy do utterly amazing. You know, Crash is a franchise that for a lot of people just has a crazy nostalgia pull, myself included. A lot of us grew up on Crash Bandicoot. And I think getting a brand new Crash, right? The Insane trilogy and Crash Team Racing were cool. It was nice to revisit those games and go back. But I think a brand new one has crazy sales potential. Metrics look good, both on YouTube as well as a few other things that I check that I won't go into. But there's a couple other things that look pretty good for Crash 4. I'm expecting good things, Crackstar. I think it's going to do very, very, very well for Activision, as long as it's not like terrible, obviously. You know, you have to always put that out there with any game. If it's a complete dumpster fire, it's not going to sell well. But as long as it's decent, I think Crash 4 will be actually pretty huge. We got a super chat here. Let me hit that super chat really quick. Ooh, we've got two super chats. Timur 72299 saying, oh, Timur, Starfield sales expectations. Ooh, what a curveball. What a curveball we have here. Because we've seen very little on Starfield, right? We know so little about it. Hardly anything. Big. Timur, big. Big. It's a new IP for Bethesda. I have a feeling Bethesda is putting a lot into this because I think Bethesda themselves know that they're in a bit of a weird spot. I think we all feel that way, right? We haven't had a big giant, first party Bethesda game studio, like Bethesda game studios themselves, not one of the other Bethesda teams. We haven't had a big open world game from them since Fallout 4. Fallout 4 was years ago now. Elder Scrolls, we haven't had one since Skyrim. You had Elder Scrolls Online, but regular Elder Scrolls, it's been so long. They've been in some rough patches with Fallout 76 being all over the place for Bethesda. Expectations are big. I think they know they have to deliver. I think that's one reason you've seen like essentially nothing from Starfield. I think Bethesda know that they have to put so much resource and effort into this. Like it has to be good. Imagine if Starfield comes out and it's a really rocky launch like Fallout 76 was. It would be a true disaster for Bethesda. So Timur, I'm assuming Starfield's going to be very good because I think that they know the pressure. So I'm going to say very strong, Timur. It's a new IP. We haven't seen Bethesda themselves tackle a new IP in a very, very long time. It has that space sci-fi setting, which I think is going to excite people because we haven't seen Bethesda themselves tackle that before, right? We've seen like post-apocalyptic with Fallout. We've seen medieval type fantasy with Elder Scrolls. So it's something totally new. Timur, I'm going to say Starfield could be one of those 20 million plus type games. Again, this is without seeing anything. All we've seen is a tiny teaser. So let me change my mind if it looks bad. But I think a 20 plus million seller is very possible for Starfield. And it could be a lot higher, right? Usually 20 plus million is kind of that like dividing line I put on games where I'm thinking very, very big. Cyberpunk 2077, if you remember, my sales predictions for that have just been 20 plus million because hitting that 20 million barrier is crazy. It's very, very difficult. Only the biggest games get over 20 million. And obviously it can go much, much higher. But yeah, I think Starfield has that potential for sure. Man, we got super chats just dropping all over the place. Let me get another one here. Benji. Hi, Benji. Thank you for the super chat, by the way. Sony is increasing production big time. What type of indicators have they seen to make such a decision when pre-orders are not open yet? Benji, I think it's a couple reasons you're seeing Sony increase their forecast. So anyone that missed this, PlayStation was targeting 6 million, was the report, 6 million-ish consoles produced for this fiscal year for the PlayStation 5. So through March of next year was the original forecast. That was pretty conservative, I felt, even back then. They have now increased that to 9+ million for this fiscal year. So a pretty big forecast increase. I think it's the right move. I think Sony was a little worried that a high price tag could hurt the PlayStation 5, but I think that they've seen the market be just on fire this year in general, right? Consoles have been selling amazing globally in 2020, despite things like COVID and uncertainty with economics. Console sales have just been utterly through the roof. So I think that has given them some good vibes like, hey, all right, hardware's still selling very, very good, even in troubled times. So I think that's part of it. And I also think that they've seen, the online metrics. They're absolutely crazy, right? The PlayStation 5 reveal event, I tweeted a ton of those metrics whenever they were coming out. It blew up, just utterly gigantic. I'm sure they're paying attention to things like that and consumer demand. And I think they just realized 6 million is just way too conservative. They would have had unbelievable shortages for months with that. They still might have shortages with 9 million, to be honest. And then another super chat here from Tansi K. Thank you so much. How do third parties see Xbox Game Pass if people don't buy their games but play Halo for free? How is the relationship between Microsoft and third party in this case? Great question, Tansi. So a couple things. Game Pass for smaller titles, not AAA, but like more those like, let's say, indie or AA games, all evidence we have points that Game Pass actually increases their sales. You've had multiple indies and multiple like AA type developers come out and say that they saw sales increases due to Game Pass. And I think there's a very obvious reason for that. For smaller titles, Game Pass is just gigantic marketing, right? You have the fact that people that have Game Pass, are able to try it for very easy access. And if they like it, they can buy it usually for a reduced cost. So maybe you're someone that's subscribed to Game Pass. You don't think you're necessarily going to keep your Game Pass subscription permanently, or you just really like the game and you want to support the dev. So you hit that purchase button. So that's part of it. And then B, like I said, it just gets the name out there. You play something on Game Pass, you really like it. Let's say your friend isn't subscribed to Game Pass, but you're like, hey, I loved this game. It was really, really cool. That person then goes out and purchases that game. So for smaller games, Tansi, all evidence we have is that Game Pass is actually lifting sales for that size. Now, AAA, we have a bit of a mixed bag, right? We have games like Sea of Thieves and Halo Master Chief Collection that are available on Game Pass and yet are still lighting the charts on fire on Steam sales. But then you also have games like Gears 5, which I do believe had cannibalized sales from Game Pass. I think that game would have sold more units if it was not on Game Pass. So for those third party, I know those were first party examples, but for big AAA games, I think it's a bit more of an open question on if Game Pass is for helping or hurting sales. I think it's a mix. I think it's helping some games and maybe hurting other games. But remember, Microsoft writes a big check to get your game on Game Pass. So those third parties, maybe you're sacrificing some sales by going onto Game Pass, but you're also getting a big old check from Microsoft. So maybe that check off balances the lost sales, right? I think it's complicated. I think it's a little bit more complex and hard to just definitively state one way or the other. I think it's more of a case-by-case basis. All right, let's go back up. Thank you, everyone, for those super chats. Elias saying hi from Venezuela. Hello, Venezuela. I love seeing people from all over the world in the chat. It's amazing. I hope you're doing well down there in Venezuela. Dave. Ooh, good question. Do you think Japanese developers are going to move focus to Switch for new generation systems? I think Japan is still going to very much heavily support Switch, especially when you look at that install base in Japan, right? It's crazy. The Switch is just completely dominating the Japanese market. I don't think the PlayStation 5 will come anywhere near what Switch is doing in Japan. Not even close, PlayStation's just not been, if you look at the PlayStation 4, if you look at the PlayStation 3, they sell very similarly in Japan between the 3 and the 4. You're not seeing like PlayStation 4 just have a huge increase over 3, even though globally PlayStation 4 is selling much better than PlayStation 3 did. In Japan, it's not. And I don't think PlayStation 5 is going to greatly improve off of PlayStation 4 in Japan. So for those Japanese devs, Switch in your home market is just completely dominating. So I think you're going to see Japanese devs very much still support Switch for a very long time. But of course, you are going to see, those big Western-focused Japanese devs, those Square Enix, those Capcoms, companies like that. You are going to see them, of course, probably focus more on PlayStation 5 and Xbox Series X. You already have Square Enix announcing games like Project, I can't remember the name off the top of my head, but that new IP. You have Capcom stating that Resident Evil 8 Village is next gen only. So for those, big AAA Western focused Japanese devs, you will see them, I think, push a lot of support over to next gen. But for a lot of those more mid-tier or smaller Japanese publishers, Switch is still going to remain a giant focus. And even companies like Square Enix and Capcom, you are going to still see definitely support for the Switch. But I think you will see them put a lot of resources into next gen because so many of those titles like Resident Evil and Final Fantasy, for example, sell so well in the West. Micah Hendrick. Hey, Benji, hope all is well, doing very good. Any thoughts on Sony's investment into Epic? Yeah, this is very interesting. What tangible outcomes do you see stemming from this? Let me grab a drink really quick. Yeah, so it's a couple part thing. So anyone that saw Sony made a big investment into Epic Games. I think off the top of my head, if I remember right, it's $250 million, which is a lot of money. But keep in mind, that's a very small share of Epic. From the estimates, remember Epic isn't a open company, right? It's not they're private, so you can't go and just regularly buy stock of Epic Games. So we don't know the exact market value, but we have valuations, like ideas. From what we can see, it looks like Sony bought about 1.5, 1.4% of Epic. So it's a very tiny stake. It's not comparable to, say, Tencent, who owns a giant chunk of Epic. They own a very, very large share of Epic. So don't think that this means, Sony's going to have exclusive dibs on Unreal Engine and all kinds of crazy stuff like this. But what I will say, Micah, is I think there's a chance you see more first-party games from Sony utilizing Unreal Engine 5. I'm sure that Days Gone 2 is probably going to be on Unreal Engine 5. Days Gone 1 was on Unreal Engine. So Bend seems very comfortable with Unreal Engine. So you already have seen some first-party games from Sony utilizing it. I won't be surprised if you see more. That doesn't mean everyone. I still fully expect Guerrilla to keep utilizing their engine Decima. I'm sure Naughty Dog are going to keep using their proprietary engine. But you might see some of their teams, that aren't using those engines move over to Unreal Engine 5. Unreal Engine 5 looks like it's an amazing engine. And so don't be surprised if you see that, but also remember this is Sony themselves investing into Unreal Engine, not just the PlayStation part of it. So it could be utilized in movies. You're seeing a lot of movie studios and stuff start utilizing game technology in movies. Like you saw this with The Mandalorian, for example, utilizing things like this. So it's more of an investment, not just for games. I think it's kind of across the board. And also Sony has had a strong partnership with Epic on Fortnite. So I expect to see some cross promotion stuff with that. Maybe you're going to get an Aloy skin in Fortnite, right? Things like that. So just expect a stronger partnership between Epic and Sony, but nothing like crazy. It's not like Sony's a giant, holder in Epic now. They're more of just like a small holder. Ryan saying always in a tank. Yeah, tanks are my favorite. I wear basically if I'm not at work, I'm wearing a tank top. Just basically, unless it's winter time. But during the spring and summer, I'm a tank top guy. Sun's out, guns out. Forzathon. How are you, Benji? I'm so happy the Xbox show is at 60 FPS. I'm hyped. Yeah, Forzathon. I think Microsoft's going to announce a lot of 60 FPS first party games. You see Phil Spencer in all of these interviews saying how one of the things he's most excited about for next gen's higher frame rates. He talks about that all the time. I mean, it's like the go-to. He talks about that more than he talks about games looking better. He talks about how games should feel better next gen, right? So I think you're going to see a lot of 60 FPS games from first party or 60 FPS options, right? Maybe to get that true 4K with all the bells and whistles on, you have a 30 FPS setting, or if you want, all about frame rate, they give you that performance option for 60 FPS. I think you're going to see a lot, Forzathon, a lot of 60 FPS games from Microsoft. Kieran Buckley. Hi, Benji. It seems very likely Breath of the Wild 2 is not coming out this year. So could that be Nintendo's big holiday game next year? Probably, Kieran. But remember, Nintendo is not opposed to launching Zelda outside of the holidays. Breath of the Wild, the original, came out with the Switch in March. So I don't think it necessarily has to be their big holiday game next year. But Kieran, I'm going to guess it is. I don't think it's going to come out, in the first half of next year. I just don't think so. I think COVID has kind of affected Nintendo and things like that. We had Jeff Grubb comment on that. So yeah, that's probably their big holiday game next year. I think there's a very strong chance at that, but not impossible. It comes out earlier. Okay. Elias here talking about the cross-gen stuff. He said, talking about Phil. Did I miss the first part of that question? Sorry, Elias. Okay, I don't think so. All right, so this is in regards to the cross-gen stuff here from Elias, saying basically is Microsoft talks about holding back, right? That Phil Spencer has stated that he doesn't feel that cross-gen is going to hold back games. And then Elias says, but Resident Evil 8 is not on PS4 and 1 because it could be held back from their vision. And the medium game is not on 1 because of that reason. Yeah, Elias, this is interesting and complex. So I think it is true that cross-gen wouldn't hold back certain games, but it can hold back others, especially because the big boost for next-gen is SSDs and CPUs, not GPU. Granted, you're seeing a giant GPU increase as well, right? GPU is going to help with all those bells and whistles. It's going to help with, resolution. It's going to help with things like that. So your pure visual fidelity, that's a big jump. That's nice. But the thing that's really going to change game design is the CPU giant increase. We're looking at an over 4 times increase over current gen for the CPU. And those SSDs, that really changes game design, right? So many things were held back this particular generation from what were really pretty poor CPUs. So I'm a bit not on the same fence as Phil with what he's saying here. I know he says that, hey, you've seen PC for so long, people develop for a huge range of hardware. But here's the deal. It's like Ratchet and Clank, what we saw from that is not possible without an SSD, really. It's not. I'm not going to go into details here, but I can't even actually say too much around that. I almost slipped here. But put it this way, what Ratchet and Clank's doing isn't possible on anything else besides that PS5 SSD. So, I don't know. I see Phil's point, and I see why Microsoft is going to support cross-gen. I actually completely see why, because their thought process is Microsoft really is trying to become not defined strictly by platform and strictly by hardware. That's kind of the whole idea of Game Pass, right? It's on PC, it's on Xbox One, it's on next gen. Xcloud is going to be available on your phone, it's going to be available on your tablet, it's going to be available on console. Like, Microsoft's thought process is that they want their games to hit as wide as possible. They're trying to cast as wide of a net as they possibly can. It's kind of like a different strategy than Sony. Sony really wants to sell PlayStation 5s off PlayStation 5 exclusives. Microsoft more is of the idea, we want as many people as possible to play our games. So it's a completely different strategy. But there is no doubt there are certain games that are only going to be feasible in their game design specifically because of those SSDs and CPU big jumps, right? So, I get Phil's point, but I also somewhat disagree. But I don't think it's the end of the world either way. I think Halo Infinite's going to be awesome. It's cross-gen. I'm sure it's going to be completely amazing. And then Elias asking if The Last of Us Part 2 has already sold 10 million. No, I don't think so at all. Nope. Not at 10 million yet. It is going to hit 10 million. It's going to hit 10 million, at a pretty fast pace overall. But no, I don't think it's at 10 million sold. Nope. Costas. How much do you think God of War and Horizon Zero Dawn will sell on PC? Horizon Zero Dawn, all tracking looks excellent for it on PC. It's been in the Steam bestsellers chart for basically since the minute it went up for pre-order. So I think Horizon is going to sell well over 1 million units on PC, way over 1 million, actually. I think it could hit multiple millions on PC. God of War, we don't know is coming to PC yet. There's a lot of rumors. There's a lot of people that think it probably will. It makes sense for it to go to PC. If Horizon is, let's just say hypothetically God of War went to PC, it would also sell multiple million units, I believe. I think any of those big first-party PlayStation games will be a multi-million unit seller. Silence PP7. It's only a few days in, but how are sales looking for Death Stranding PC? And where do you see the combined lifetime sales PC and PS4 ending up? So Silence PP7, it had a decent concurrent launch number peak. It was up into the 30,000s. That's pretty decent, but it's not huge. For example, Resident Evil 3, which came out earlier this year, had a concurrent peak over 60,000, and Doom Eternal had a concurrent peak of over 100,000. So up into the 30,000s is decent, especially for an older port, right? Keep in mind, Resident Evil and Doom came out at launch on PC, right? There was no waiting, whereas this is a late port. It came out on PlayStation 4 last year, and we're in July of this year that it's coming out. So, of course, that's going to affect sales that it didn't come out at launch. But I would say Silence PP7, it looks like it's doing decent, not mind-blowing, but decent. To compare it to another Kojima game, Metal Gear Solid 5 had a peak concurrent over 90,000. So, I would say pretty decent for a late port, but not a mind-blowing performance. In terms of combined sales, Death Stranding hasn't shown strong legs anywhere. I don't know. Sony's never given us a number, but maybe somewhere in the 5 million range, maybe between PC and PlayStation 4, possibly. I could be way off on that because it's always difficult to do these estimates when you have literally zero data. Zero. Sony has never given even one number. You can kind of make pretty good guesses whenever you're like, hey, I know at least what it sold in the first 6 months, so I can kind of extrapolate off of that. But Sony has never given us anything, and neither has Kojima Productions. So as a total guess, I'm going to say 5 million range between PC and PS4, but that's just a guess. Kieran Buckley, do you think Ratchet & Clank can do huge sales on PS5 whenever it releases? Yes, Kieran, I absolutely think so. I think it was one of the standout performers at that PlayStation 5 reveal. You saw people all over talking about it. It looks excellent. And it was also one of the only games shown that really showed us like, wow, this is next gen in terms of like completely new features, right? We saw games that looked amazing like Horizon Zero Dawn or Horizon Forbidden West, like, Gran Turismo. We saw really beautiful games, but games that just looked like better versions of what we have right now. Ratchet & Clank did an excellent job of showing, hey, here's what SSDs developed games can do, where you can just jump really quickly between completely different worlds. That was awesome. So, Kieran, Ratchet & Clank, I expect to do very good in sales. Very good. Costas, do you think Uncharted 4 will hit 20 million? God of War is outpacing it in players. No, Costas. I don't think Uncharted 4 will hit 20 million. I don't. Yeah, I just don't think so. Maybe if we never get another Uncharted game again, like if Uncharted 4 is the final Uncharted game we ever see, maybe then, because people will, people that want to play an Uncharted game years from now, that's your option. But I have a feeling we will see more Uncharted from a different studio than Naughty Dog. So I don't think so. 20 million seems not likely. Forzathon, this is fascinating. Anyone that hasn't seen this is fascinating. Xbox has removed the ability to buy Xbox Gold beyond 3 months. Plus, there are only 3 games with gold this week. Seems like gold is going to end soon. What do you think? Forzathon, this is interesting. I don't want to read too much into it because who knows? Maybe there's something going on there. But it looks to me like there is definitely something happening with gold. Maybe that's going to become part of Game Pass. Maybe it's just going to become one thing. Right now, Ultimate is kind of that, right? You get Game Pass console, Game Pass PC, and Xbox Live Gold. You get it all into this one Ultimate thing, but I wonder if Gold just in general is going to become Game Pass. Ooh, that would be interesting. That would be fascinating. Talk about a couple things. A, what a way to increase Game Pass in general, like as a brand. What a way to increase the amount of people that can access your first party games like Halo Infinite. But at the same time, you have people that are buying gold and buying Game Pass now. So There's a revenue risk. I don't know, Forzathon. It's fascinating. You can't buy a year of Xbox Live Gold now. I don't know. There's something going on, Forzathon. I think there's definitely something in the works over there at Microsoft. Glover Parker. Hey, Benji, what have you been playing on your Oculus Quest recently? And are you planning on picking up Five Nights at Freddy's VR that releases today? Thanks for the question, Glover. Don't get a lot of VR or Oculus questions. Yeah, I love my Oculus Quest. I use it literally every single day. I play a lot of Beat Saber. I play Beat Saber every single day almost. That is one of my main forms of cardio workouts. I have custom songs on my Oculus Quest and on Beat Saber. I download custom tracks. I play a lot of that. That's one of my go-tos for cardio. I'll tell you what, you play Beat Saber on Expert or Expert Plus for a solid hour, taking very little breaks between songs, you will work a sweat. So I play a lot of Beat Saber. I play a game called Thrill of the Fight. I really enjoy doing the boxing on there. It's really, really fun. I played through Half-Life Alyx on it. I used a Oculus Link cable. I connected it to my PC and played Half-Life Alyx on there, which was amazing. So that's some of the stuff I've been playing, Glover Parker. Yeah, I haven't looked into Five Nights at Freddy's VR, but maybe I'll have to look into it. Here we go. Interesting here from Craig. At what point does both Microsoft and Sony waiting to reveal price become more of a detriment to their sales goals than a positive? One of them has to go first. Yes, Craig, this pricing war has been interesting. We're way behind schedule, right? We already had pre-orders this time, last gen in the cycle. We already had prices. We were way ahead. I don't think you're going to see price again. Like I've mentioned, I started talking about this really in June. I don't think we're going to see it until August for both. I don't think you're going to see Sony or Xbox announce price until August. And I think that's fine if these consoles are coming in November, because that's still what? August, September, October, November, 4 solid months of pre-orders. If it was later than that, that would be a mistake, in my opinion. You can't hold off later. It has to be by August. You really need to start ramping up those pre-orders and production. So, Craig, I would say they're okay for now. It's frustrating for consumers because people have no idea how much money they're supposed to be saving up right now, because we need to we need to buy consoles, we need to buy games, we need to buy controllers. So it is frustrating as a consumer that we still don't know. But in terms of their business strategy, as long as they go by August, they're fine. Later than that, though, would be a problem, in my opinion. I think it would be a genuine problem. Ooh, Sounds PP7. KOTOR turned Knights of the Old Republic, turned 17 yesterday. What are your memories of Knights of the Old Republic series, and do you think Disney EA will ever do a remake or a new Star Wars RPG? Here is a giant admission. I have never completed a Knights of the Old Republic game. I played 1 and 2 briefly a long time ago, 17 years ago. I was pretty young. I played them briefly, but I did not finish either one of those. So that is a series that I am behind the ball on compared to a lot of people. So I'm not as attached to Knights of the Old Republic as many people are. In terms of, do I think that Disney EA will make a new Star Wars RPG? Yes. I think they know the demand on it. When that will be, I don't know. Is that going to be in 2 or 3 years, or is that going to be in 10 years? I don't know. But RPG is a giant genre. Star Wars is a giant brand. And people talk about how much they loved Knights of the Old Republic. At some point, yeah, you'll get one. I'm not sure when, but it will happen, yes. Split End. Any surprise game you think we'll see at the Xbox Showcase? I think Obsidian's new game. I don't know if that's a surprise or not. I don't know if a lot of people are expecting them to be there anyways, but I fully expect to see Obsidian's AAA RPG there. So that I think is going to be surprising for a lot of people that might not be expecting that big AAA Obsidian game. Maybe it's not there, but I think it is. The team that has been building that is not the same team that made the Outer Worlds, so different people there. So I think that might be a big one. I think there's probably going to be a big third-party surprise game. Maybe Starfield. Maybe. Very slim chance, but maybe, because Bethesda and Microsoft typically have had a very strong relationship in the past. You know, if you remember, Fallout 76 was on Xbox's E3 stage. Fallout 4 was on Xbox's E3 stage. Xbox and Bethesda just have a really long partnership with each other. They seem to get along very, very well. So maybe slim chance, but maybe Starfield could be a surprise there. Sounds PP7. With video game animes becoming common on Netflix, yeah, very cool. Dragon's Dogma, Cyberpunk, Castlevania. What are some that you'd like to see? Ooh, fun. I think Dishonored and Infamous would be perfect. Both of those would be great, especially with Infamous being kind of set in a superhero world, right? We all know how popular superheroes are. So Infamous would work good. Dishonored would be really cool. I would love to see another Halo anime series. You know, Halo already has done this in the past. There was already, I don't remember the exact name of it, but they did like an anime series there where it was like kind of one-offs. It wasn't like a long story series, but it was like a couple different anime studios made different ones. I think you could make a really cool Halo anime. God of War would be cool. God of War would be very, very cool. I would love to see, there's already God of War comics. I would love to see a God of War anime. So I would say that would be two that are high up for me, God of War and Halo. Those would be really awesome. Ico1117. Nice to have Xcloud as part of Game Pass. Yeah, that's a big move from Microsoft. Big move. It might not seem big to some, but it's big. Microsoft is, I believe, the company that is best positioned to do very well in streaming. I think they are positioned very well. That Game Pass library, their biggest games hitting day one, and now if you have Game Pass Ultimate, you can use those with Xcloud. I think that Microsoft's positioned very well on Xcloud. I think that they are going to leave stuff like Stadia far behind. I really do. I really, really do. They're positioned so well with Xcloud. JZC 5130. Any third-party JRPGs you'd like to see at the Xbox Game Showcase? Oh, yeah. Dying for Persona or Dragon Quest, even if they're old. Persona seems like a long shot, but not impossible. Dragon Quest is interesting. I could see that. Square Enix has given Xbox a lot of love, right? They've brought over a ton of those Final Fantasy games. They've brought over a ton of the Kingdom Hearts games. So Dragon Quest, actually, Jay-Z, I wouldn't be shocked to see Dragon Quest show up on Xbox. Not at all. It's already multi-platform, right? It's already on PlayStation and it's already on Switch. So it already went multi-platform. So I could definitely see Dragon Quest on Xbox. Persona would be a long shot, but I don't think impossible. And I will always say, even though there's basically a 0% chance that happens, a Lost Odyssey sequel, baby. I would love it. Give me a Lost Odyssey sequel. Forzathon saying the Gears 5 Xbox Series showcase on Unreal Engine conferences in a few minutes too. Oh, yeah, missing that. Oh, I'm going to have to go back and watch that. Ooh. Doing the stream, I completely forgot. I was doing it at the same time as the Gears 5 showcase. Whoops. I'll have to go back and watch. I'm very excited for that. Oh, man. Fascinating one here from Split End. When is Call of Duty coming? Any chance it's not this year? So this is the longest we have ever gone with Call of Duty not being shown. This is very strange. We're in the middle of July, and we have not seen Call of Duty. We usually see Call of Duty in May, at least announced. We are way behind schedule, Split End. I would say maybe there's something fishy going on with the marketing rights. Maybe Xbox has acquired next-gen marketing rights for Call of Duty. Maybe it's at the Xbox showcase. That would be crazy because Sony's had it now for so long. I don't know the exact terms of the Sony agreement for Call of Duty. Did that just cover current gen? When that deal was struck, was it saying, hey, for PlayStation 4 and Xbox One, Sony had exclusive marketing rights, but it didn't go over to next generation platforms? I don't know. I don't know the details of that, but it's weird, Split End. It's very weird. If Call of Duty isn't at the Xbox showcase either, it might miss this year. It really wouldn't that be crazy? A year without Call of Duty, but I don't know. We're getting late. We're getting really, really late. So if we don't see it soon, it might have slipped, Split End. It might have missed this year. Ooh, Shadow Thief. Could we see Quantic Dream at the Xbox showcase now that they're not doing Sony exclusives anymore? It's possible, Shadow. Definitely possible. I'm not expecting that, but like you said, they're not partnered with Sony anymore. For a while, they were kind of like second party to PlayStation, where they were doing a lot of exclusives for them, but they're not doing that any longer. They said they're going to be doing multi-platform game development. So Shadow Thief, I would say possible, but I don't expect to see them there. Costas, do you think Ghost of Tsushima will become Sony's 6th most popular franchise over Gran Turismo? I don't know. Those Gran Turismo metrics looked really good for the next Gran Turismo game. It did some really big numbers on YouTube and social media. So here's what I'll say. I think Ghost of Tsushima has a chance of surpassing Horizon for the fastest selling new IP this generation for PlayStation Studios. You know, we know that Spider-Man sold faster, but it's hard for me to consider Spider-Man a new IP. I mean, Spider-Man's one of the biggest IPs in the world. Granted, it was a new version of Spider-Man, but me personally, I don't consider Spider-Man PlayStation 4 a new IP. I just don't. That's way too big of a property. Like, it sells on that brand alone. Now, granted, the game was also fantastic, which helped it, but just that branding of Spider-Man helped a lot. So I don't consider that a new IP. I consider Horizon Zero Dawn the fastest selling new IP for Sony Studios. I think there's a chance that Horizon beats it. Ghost. I think there's a chance Ghost beats it just because it has a bigger install base, and I think it's going to do better in Japan. But legs will be interesting to watch. I could see a scenario where Ghost of Tsushima opens bigger than Horizon, but doesn't have the legs Horizon does. I think that's possible. Dave, is Xcloud going to encroach on Switch's Play Anywhere market for the future? Dave, it could. So one interesting thing that has come out from Phil Spencer himself has said that one of the most popular markets for Xcloud that they've done testing for is in Asia. He mentioned that Asia has shown a lot of interest for Xcloud. So you know what's interesting, Dave, is Xbox has never been able to gain any kind of footing in Japan or Asia at all. Like, it's just not a market that Xcloud does well in, or I mean that Xbox does well in, but maybe Xcloud could be that foot in the door for them, because you don't need someone to go out and buy a console necessarily for Xcloud, right? So maybe it's hard to sell Xboxes there, but maybe you can get the Asian market to, invest into Xcloud. Could happen, Dave. Phil seems to be very optimistic about Xcloud in Asia and Japan. So, Dave, it could happen. We'll have to see, but it's definitely a possibility. There's encouraging signs. Elias, The Last of Us 2 and Ghost of Tsushima in 2 months. PlayStation seems very confident because they could easily save one of those for PlayStation 5. But no, so many exclusives only on the PS5. What do you think? Yeah, I'm wondering if there's something else we don't know about PlayStation 5 launch, right? Seems weird that right now Spider-Man is the only confirmed first-party launch title for PlayStation. Ratchet and Clank wasn't given an exact date. We know Horizon is 2021. Yes, Spider-Man's huge, but this isn't Spider-Man 2. It's more of a shorter game, right? It's more of like a 5 to 10 hour experience. I don't know, Elias. I feel like there might be something up Sony's sleeve for launch besides what we've seen. Remember, there's that August state of play. I don't know. It does feel like maybe Sony's got something else they haven't quite shown their cards on. Forzathon, Benji for president and Split N89 for vice president. I can tell you, Forzathon, I appreciate it. I would never want that job. Never. President seems like it would be miserable. I'm already a guy that doesn't deal with stress like too well. I shouldn't say stress. I should say negativity. It just really makes me sad, negativity. So, Forzathon, I would not handle that job well at all. But thank you. I appreciate the kind words. How long have we been going? An hour? I'm going to go for probably about 10 or 15 more minutes, and then I got to get ready for work. Thanks so much, everyone, for all the questions. We're going to still keep going a little bit longer. There's still a ton of questions, a ton. So we're going to hit those. We'll probably go about 10 or 15 more minutes, and then we'll call it a chat. Thanks, everyone who's jumped in. If you like doing these chats, make sure you hit the like button or subscribe. We do these about once a week, and then hitting like, helps the YouTube algorithm discover me for new people, and subscribing, of course, helps my channel grow. We're getting close to 2,000 subscribers. So thank you so much, everyone. My Twitter's way bigger. For those that don't follow me on Twitter, on Twitter, I'm over 12,000. I'm actually going on 13,000 on Twitter. So my Twitter's way bigger than my YouTube, but my YouTube's getting close to 2,000. I really appreciate the support, everyone. So yeah, let's go. We got a mission. Let's get us to 2,000 in the next, hopefully couple weeks. DT, based on what you've heard, do you really believe the Xbox Games Showcase will be filled with megaton announcements / reveals? Should we temper expectations? Thanks. DT, I think it's going to be very strong showcase. I think in terms of megatons, it's going to depend on your tastes, right? I don't think you're going to get a ton of megatons like in terms of here's super linear story focused game. Those people that just want to see Last of Us and Ghost of Tsushimas and things like that, which Ghost is open world, but you know what I mean? I don't think you're going to see a ton of that kind of content, maybe a little bit, but if you like big open worlds, if you like RPGs, if you like Halo, that kind of stuff, I think it's going to be an amazing show. So if you're into RPGs, Halo, open world type stuff, maybe some multiplayer stuff, I think it'll be an amazing show for you. If you're looking for kind of carbon copy Sony games, but Xbox's version, I'd be surprised if you see much of that. Probably not a lot of that, because I don't think that that's Xbox's forte. Jack, what do you think about Xbox going VR this conference or at some time soon with their partnership with Facebook Gaming? Jack, I wouldn't expect anything VR here at this show, but I will say I think Microsoft may be starting to feel a little bit better about VR. If you notice, Phil Spencer, I think not that long ago, tweeted out about how he saw Iron Man VR and was really impressed with it. He loved it. He said he snuck in and got to play some Iron Man VR and really enjoyed it. Also, subtly behind the scenes, a lot of people don't realize, but Oculus is really taking off, like really taking off. VR is finally really starting to ramp up, especially Oculus. So, Jack, I think you could see Xbox do some VR next gen. I don't think you're going to see it here. I don't think so here at all. But maybe a few years into next gen, you might see a partnership with Oculus on Xbox. I think that is definitely a possibility. I don't think they'll build their own, but maybe they will allow Oculus to connect to it, right? DT, chances of Elden Ring and Starfield making an appearance next week. DT, I would say Elden Ring low and Starfield also low, but possible. Possible. Hazard Gaming. Thoughts on Xbox Games Show only being 1 hour. That is the exact length that the PlayStation 5 show was as well. It was barely over an hour. It was like an hour and 14 minutes. And that's counting like intro segments and stuff. So put it this way, Hazor, Hazador, did you like the Sony show? Did you think it had enough? Because this is going to be right around the same length. So I would say it's fine. An hour's fine for showing next gen stuff, especially because Microsoft has said there's nothing hardware and there's nothing business related here. So don't expect to see Lockhart here. Don't expect to get pricing details here. It's going to be games, games, games. So considering how much Sony showed in an hour, Microsoft can show a lot. That's plenty of time. Benji. Hi, Benji. What should Stadia do to compete effectively against Xcloud? This is going to be a controversial take, but Benji, I don't know that they can. I just don't know that they can, to be perfectly honest with you. Microsoft has been in the gaming space for so long. They have strong partners from being in the gaming space for so long. They have a much bigger first party than anything that's going on over at Stadia. They have Game Pass now, which is part of Xcloud, which is already a gigantically successful service on its own. I mean, I don't want to be a Debbie Downer, but Benji, I just don't see how Stadia can compete with Xcloud. I just don't. I don't. They're going to have to make some massive moves. Like if they're going to really compete with Xcloud, they're going to have to start going out and buying first party studios for them, like big ones. Like they're going to have to make some massive moves. As of now, Benji, I think Xcloud is going to leave Stadia far behind. I just do. Timor, hi Benji. What are your sales expectations for Cyberpunk 2077? And do you think Elder Scrolls 6 will beat it? Timor, right now my bare minimum expectation is 20 million for Cyberpunk. Could be way over that, could be 30, could be 40, but we really need to see quality first. But at bare minimum, Timor, I expect 20 million. Do I think Elder Scrolls 6 will beat it? I don't know. I think it can beat it. So Witcher 3 did somewhere over, man, I'm working off the top of my head here, and I'm sure I'm a little off, but it's somewhere I think around 25 million for Cyberpunk, and Skyrim's over, for Witcher and Skyrim is over 30 million from what I've seen. So I think Elder Scrolls 6 can, because Elder Scrolls is such a gigantic brand and it's been so long. So if I had to make a prediction right now without seeing literally anything about Elder Scrolls 6, I'll say yes. I'll say Elder Scrolls 6 would be bigger than Cyberpunk unless Cyberpunk's multiplayer takes off, because that is going to have a multiplayer component that we haven't seen yet. We've seen how big multiplayer can be with games like Grand Theft Auto. So I would say unless the single player takes off, Elder Scrolls 6 probably could be bigger than Cyberpunk. All right, I'm going to scroll to the bottom just so I can hit a couple questions from the bottom for people that came into the stream late, and then we're going to call it a stream. So let me grab, maybe 2 or 3 questions from the bottom, and then we're going to peace out everyone. Portal Player, do you think Ghost will have 1 million sold over the weekend? Yes, Portal Player, much higher. I'm expecting Ghost of Tsushima to sell over 2 million units in its first week. That is my current expectation, 2+ million in 1 week. I did not hear about this. Kat Paley Sehan, did you hear about No Man's Sky gaining 1 million new players after joining Game Pass? And what are your thoughts? That's amazing. I did not hear that, but it's not shocking to me at all. Game Pass has over 10 million subscribers, and Phil hinted recently that it's well over 10 million was his exact phrasing just recently. So that could be, who knows, maybe we're in 11 million, maybe we're in 12 million territory. He just said well over 10 million from the last time they reported. So gaining 1 million doesn't shock me at all, considering how big Game Pass is. Benji, what future for E3 after all those digital events? Any incentives for console makers and big publishers to come back in 2021? Benji, I'd like to see it. I don't know how you all feel, but for me, this whole summer games thing has not worked. It just hasn't. I don't think so at all. And even online metrics outside of Sony's show was giant. But if you look at EA Play, if you look at Ubisoft Forward, the metrics have not been impressive. I'm just going to outright say it. They're not doing big numbers on social media. So I think that there is a actual thing that a rising tide lifts all boats. I think E3 gets more attention for the industry as a whole. I think companies are seeing that now. Like, really? I think if you're EA or Ubisoft, you probably are like, yeah, I think we could have done better with an E3. Now, obviously, COVID made that impossible. And obviously, the biggest players in town, Sony, for example, with their PlayStation 5 showcase, can survive without E3. But I think one of the big takeaways from this whole summer thing is that E3 is special, E3 is awesome, and I think a lot of us took it for granted. I think so many of us got used to E3 every single year. Maybe we got a little bit jaded towards it. But my big takeaway is, yeah, the industry needs E3 in a way. I really hope to see it come back. I think a lot of these games aren't doing near the views they would have with an E3 show. All right, let's grab one more question. Who gets the last one? Last one. I'm trying to fish for one more. Here we go. I like this one from Danger Man. Sorry to anyone whose questions I missed. Hold on to them. Save them for the next chat. We're coming back to the next chat. So if I miss anyone, I am sorry. Danger Man here gets the last question. Hi, Benji. With Resident Evil 8 on next gen only as a third-party title, which third-party titles will be next gen only within a year? Because say for the next Battlefield, I could argue next gen only because a live service. Would many MTX purchases won't be on Xbox One, PS4? Would games as a service cross-gen released in the next 2 years and be forced to support 5 platforms, etc., etc.? Basically, the question from Danger Man, what third-party games could be next-gen only? Danger Man, here's what I'll say. Final Fantasy 16, I 100% expect that to be next gen only. I do not expect to see a current gen version of Final Fantasy 16. So I will say that. That's one example. I think that probably some of these WB games, I think particularly, I don't think Batman. I think Batman might be cross-gen. Rocksteady's game might be next gen only. That's possible, I think. I think it's possible because we haven't even seen that game yet. So it's not coming out in like the next 6 months. I'd say Rocksteady is possibly next gen only. Battlefield, Battlefield could go either way. I could see it being cross-gen or next-gen only because it's not coming out until next fall. So I'd say that could swing either way. But yeah, those are kind of the ones I really think only one I feel basically positive on, like this game's going to be next gen only, is Final Fantasy. I think there's almost no chance Final Fantasy 16's cross gen. I think that's a next gen game. All right, everyone. We're going to end the chat there. Thank you so much as always. I love all of you. I love doing these chats. Thanks for showing up. Thanks for making the chats possible. Make sure that you hit that like button if you like doing the chats and subscribe. I will see you all in the next chat. I'm not positive yet if I'm going to live stream the Xbox Showcase or not. I'm up in the air on it. If you guys want me to do a live stream, a companion stream to the Xbox Showcase, let me know. I did one for PlayStation. I'm never sure how much people like me doing these companion streams or not. I've done 2 now. I did one for the PlayStation 5 showcase, and I did one for the Inside Xbox May show. If you want me to do that, if you want me to do an Xbox companion stream, let me know here on YouTube, let me know in the comments, or let me know on Twitter. If enough people want me to do it, I definitely will. Otherwise, we can just do a live chat afterwards and discuss our thoughts. Thanks, everyone. Stay safe, play some games. I will see you in the next chat. I got to go head off to work. Peace, and I will see you all soon. Bye.